What's up, everyone? We hope you've been well. Today we have a quick and easy install that we're pretty excited about. It is of the Cascadia 4x4 hood-mounted solar panel. If you're not familiar with Cascadia 4x4, essentially they are a company that provides a variety of shapes and sizes and outputs of hood-mounted solar panels for a variety of makes and models of vehicles. Essentially, the size and shape and output of the panel is going to depend on the vehicle's shape and size of the hood itself, whether or not there's a bunch of hood vents, and realistically, just what kind of real estate on the hood is available for a hood-mounted panel. So this is for the second gen Tacoma for our truck Loki here, and really there's a lot of real estate available right in the middle. It's a nice big flat area. And so this is the shape of the panel that we have for our second gen Tacoma, and this is a 90-watt panel for this make and model of truck. Now, we're going to talk more about this panel here in just a little bit when we get going on the install, but we wanted to talk about a couple things that we brought up in our last episode. If you haven't seen that, check that out up top there. And if you want to just skip ahead to the install, we're going to provide a timestamp down below, so feel free to just skip forward if you're only looking for the install. But again, we wanted to talk about a couple things because this is the start of some of the work that we were talking about in our last episode. And, well, Tracy and I are really excited about it because we've never seen the truck look so good. We just recently had the truck detailed at a local shop called the Winter Park Auto Spa, and they absolutely killed it. It looks incredible. The truck used to be basically like a grayish black. This truck is 10 years old, and Tracy and I have been wheeling and trail riding it for those 10 years, and all of that trail and scrub just brushing against the truck has not been nice to the paint. Some of us care, some of us don't. Necessarily, Tracy and I haven't really been too worried about it, but we have some work that we're wanting to have done to the truck where that is going to be a really important step to have had the exterior detailed, and we're just really excited about it because you can see how black and shiny the truck is. Again, you can see Tracy's car reflected in the side, and it absolutely looks incredible. We're super thankful to the guys there at the Winter Park Auto Spa, but it was also kind of a big step that we were waiting for doing this install as well, because, well, we figured it'd be a nice clean prepped surface for this panel here as well. Now, we had talked about a whole bunch of other maintenance things that we wanted to get done on the truck, and we have started working on a plan for that, so we hope to get to show you guys that in later episodes. But for today, this is one of the new things that we were hoping to have done on the truck here soon. And so this panel here, another thing we wanted to mention about is the importance of using affiliate links and discount codes. We picked up this panel from one of our partners, TacomaBeast.com, and it's one of the partners that we've actually always been super excited to work with. We're longtime fans of Tacoma Beast, and it was an incredible opportunity to work with them a little bit and get a discount code. So that code is Vikings5, and all of that use of a discount code or any of the affiliate links for any channels that you like really goes a long way to supporting the channel, and it helped us out greatly in picking up this panel here today. And so we're super thankful to all of you who use our affiliate links and discount codes, and we're also super thankful to Tacoma Beast for being able to work with us to help get us this panel here today. All right, but without further ado, let's get into talking about the panel and working on this install. And so the first thing we want to dive into when talking about these panels from Cascadia 4x4 is what the intended purpose appears to be. If you go to the Cascadia 4x4 website and you start looking into the year, make, and model of your vehicle, and you start looking at the solar panel setups for your vehicle, you're going to see a couple of options made up of three primary components. You're going to have the panel setup itself. There is a vinyl decal protector to go on your hood underneath the panel to help protect your paint, as well as an MPPT charge controller. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what that is, it's a device that optimizes the power output from a panel. Essentially, a panel will put out a combination of voltage and amperage, the two components of wattage, and that MPPT charge controller, it's a maximum power point tracer. It essentially just plays around with the voltage and amperage to provide the maximum wattage output from a panel. It's a pretty standard device when talking about charging batteries from a solar panel. And what it appears to be the main purpose of the panels itself is that they want you to connect the panel to the vehicle, connect the output to the MPPT charger inside the engine bay, and then the output of that will go to your primary vehicle battery. And that will essentially consistently keep your primary vehicle battery topped off. In case, say you have an overland rig set up where you've got a couple devices that are consistently draining on that primary vehicle battery, the solar panel setup may help offset that drain and keep your vehicle battery topped off. Now, again, that's what it appears to be the intended purpose of the panel and MPPT charge controller setup. However, we intend to use the panel in a different way. We would like to keep our panel connected to a battery bank that lives in the bed of the truck here. So we did not buy an MPPT charger for this, as those power banks have MPPT charge controllers inside of them, because you can connect a variety of solar to those power banks, and the power banks have to have an MPPT charge controller to be able to take the power from those panels and charge themselves up. Now, if you're familiar with our setup, we have a Yeti 1500X power bank that lives in the bed of our truck here, and that's enough power for us to provide power for, say, an air conditioner in the summer. That's our main, largest, number one consuming device for our battery bank. And we have that battery bank set up with the Goal Zero Yeti Link, which is an alternator charger. That thing will put in 400 to 600 watts an hour while we're driving around. And that's what's always made sense to us, because if we drain our battery near zero in a night, we want to be able to charge up that 1500 watt hour battery bank in a day. And that alternator charger easily does that. However, we have run into issues when we stay stationary, say at expos, events, or even if we want to camp for multiple days at a campsite. If we're using that much power and consuming that out of our power bank, what we've run into several times is the need to just run and idle our vehicle for, say, an hour and a half or 2 hours to just get us to a point where we'd be good for the next night. And we hope to have the panel set up so that we can help offset that need. So this will just consistently charge into the battery bank while we're driving around as well, because it's mounted to the vehicle. But if we're also stationary, it's gonna help offset the need to run our vehicle to charge up with that alternator charger. So in talking about our purpose, again, we don't have an MPPT charger, and well, why I want to talk about that is because if we take the panel on this nice, clear, sunny day, and we prop it up there and say that's on our hood, well, we only see an output of an average of 50 watts. And now you may be wondering why the panel is rated for 90 watts, but we're only getting an average of 50 watts. To us, that's pretty dang good, because really, a panel is combined with an intended MPPT charger to get you closer to those maximum output numbers. And the fact that we're using the one on the Goal Zero, we're going to get lesser numbers or different numbers. But we're pretty good with having at least over 50% of the maximum, or half of the maximum output. At least we're over 45. We're pretty good with that. Now, that aside, the way we're intending to do this is the panel comes with a pretty, I'd say it's about a 4-foot cord. It's a 2-pole solar connector. This is a pretty standard solar connection. And we have picked up a Goal Zero solar to Anderson connector. And this is what we're going to run the length of the vehicle up into the bed here to connect the panel to our battery bank. And Anderson cords, they're typically meant for 50 amp connections. They're just higher amperage connections. We're not going to be anywhere near that. But This cord is also going to provide less resistance as well as a better connection, because the alternative is just that standard 8mm jack. It's just that little barrel that sticks in, and that thing is usually typically loose and floppy, and we don't want it to rattle out while driving. Goal Zero also provides really nice these little connection clamps to actually lock the connection together. So that's pretty cool. And then, so what we have is just a 15-foot Anderson extension cord to plug into the battery bank. And that's essentially how we're going to run our panel, just to keep our battery bank topped off. Now, that's going to do us pretty well. We're pretty stoked about the numbers that we're seeing there. Now, the thing that we've got to get going first to get started on the install is installing our vinyl decal. Now, this is where we're going to need a controlled environment. So to start the install, we've got to flip the truck around and get it into the garage here, because we need to be able to be in a controlled temperature, and sitting out in the sun like this is obviously not a good thing. It's going to be a little too hot to be installing a vinyl decal.
Once we have the truck in the garage, we let it sit to cool down before starting the install. The first step is to do a test fit to measure out exactly where you want your panel to be installed.
So you're doing with Mark, so you're just going to kind of like cradle it up.
Full disclosure, this is our second test fit, as we did one the night before. We used a China marker or grease pen to put some dotted outlines where we want the panel to line up, in hopes of making it easier to find that perfect lineup again in later steps. We want this installed to be as centered as possible, so we use a tape measure to dial it in to perfection. It's tough though, as the lines on a vehicle don't really offer the best of measurements. So this step takes a good while until we are confident it's as close to perfectly centered as we can possibly make it. We finish this step by putting some more dotted outline marks with the China marker, in hopes that they will still be there in later steps when we need them for the final adhering of the solar panel itself. We then set the panel to the side and begin preparing the surface of the hood with a soapy water wash, followed by a rinse down wash, followed by a drying wipe down, and then finally followed by a rubbing alcohol wipe down to ensure the surface of the hood is absolutely free of all contaminants and oils. We then spray the install area with a soapy water solution from a spray bottle. Then we carefully peel and spray the underside of the vinyl with the same soapy water. We then place our vinyl decal down into the install area. The soapy water acts as a lubricant and lets you freely move the decal around into its final position, which we have a good starting point for as we eyeball it into the center of our marks. An important note here about the decal is that it's about an inch smaller in dimensions than the panel itself, protecting only the surface beneath the panel. The solar panel itself will actually adhere straight to the surface. Once we are sure the decal is absolutely centered, we begin wiping the soapy water out from beneath the decal, starting from the center and pushing the soapy water outward, being very careful to not push too hard and move the decal. Once it appears we have the decal fully mated to the surface, we then go over it with a heat gun to complete the mating process. We then rinse and wipe down the outer edge of the decal in preparation of installing the panel next. We then apply the supplied 3M adhesion promoter around the outer edge within our China marker border and wait the package instructed 5 minutes. If using our China marker trick, be careful applying the adhesion promoter on this step, as it will easily erase them. It's a good thing we made a good amount of marks, leaving us still a couple to go off of after realizing this. Once the adhesion promoter sets up for the instructed 5 minutes, it's finally time to install the solar panel. We bring the panel to the install area with the double-sided molding tape backing still in place. You need to locate where the backing starts and stops, peeling off just enough to leave it sticking out the side. We next place the panel down and begin centering up the panel one last time within our marks, being careful not to press down the exposed molding tape on Tracy's side. Once we have the panel perfectly in position, we carefully pull the exposed backing off outward and around the rest of the panel, fully peeling off the rest of the backing, again being careful to not shift the panel. The panel is now adhered to the surface of the hood, and the final step is to spend the next 5 minutes pressing firmly around the edges of the panel to apply pressure, ensuring the best adhesion possible. This is important because the panel is going to be exposed to some extreme winds in the future when driving the vehicle at highway speeds.
Well, it is now the morning after Tracy and I finished installing the Cascadia 4x4 hood-mounted solar panel. I've got to say, the installation process of this panel went way smoother than Tracy and I were expecting. Essentially, we just followed the really well laid out instructions, very detailed instructions that came with the panel itself. And like I said, it went very smooth. I'd say the hardest part is just laying out where you want the panel to be to keep it centered and straight, and trying to keep that center and straightness, but you just got to put in a little bit of extra effort and just really focus on where you want to have the panel. But other than that, it went really smooth. Now that we've been in the morning sunlight here, we've been keeping an eye on the numbers that we've been getting into the battery bank in the back from the panel. And essentially we've been seeing that slow gradual ramp up as the sun's been rising up above the truck to that 90-degree optimal position of the sun to the panel where we're going to see our maximum numbers. So the panel is working perfectly as expected. And now that we get to see the panel in the morning light, we get to see how awesome it looks on the truck. It adds a little bit of extra character. It's probably going to add to a little reflection cut down. And again, getting to see it in the morning light here, Tracy and I get to see just how good it looks, how well we got it centered up. And I got to say, we did an awesome job and it looks incredible. Now, the thing we did not show you in the installation time lapse there was right after that we went into routing our cabling and running our cord to the back. Essentially for the panel, the cord just wraps around the back of the hood, and we mounted it to the underside of the hood with some adhesive cable ties and just some zip ties. In order to do that, we made sure to keep the bottom of the hood clean with soapy water, rinse it with water, did the alcohol thing again. And then we also had an additional adhesion promoter that we went ahead and wiped under there to be able to make sure that those cable tie mounts really have the best adhesion possible, because if you've ever used them, they're a bit finicky. If there's any kind of oil or dirt grime, they like to just not work. So we gave that the best possible chance we could. And then we just essentially left the engine bay, ran our 15-foot extension cord down the frame rails into the bed of the truck where it hits our battery bank. Again, everybody's cabling situation is going to be a little bit different depending on how you're going to use the panel. And really, we're just super excited to have this product on the truck and really help offset some of our power needs. We hope you have enjoyed this installation video here. And as always, thank you for watching. Do more of what you love, and we hope to see you on the next one.
To learn more about us and find out ways to help support the adventures, visit our website, sunshinestatevikings.com. And to keep up with our adventures, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification button, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Sunshine State Vikings.